Something like assuming it was Eclipse on Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Good all for that screen through on, mate.
Good.
So good at that, isn't he?
You think he looks bad
Every week the way he goes about.
There's definitely a gap. Welcome to the Flat Pack. Welcome back to the Art Deco bunker that is the box in Leeds. This is the Flat Pack. I'm Ross Brierley, and once again we're getting stuck into this week's action, looking back at last week's racing as well, and seeing what we've learned and what we can pick out from Sandown and Haydock, of course, on Saturday. And this week it's the July Festival at Newmarket, the midweek festival that everyone forgets exists until it appears on your telly, and a manic Saturday to get excited or a little bit trepidatious about, depending on your point of view. Once again, I'm joined by two fine gentlemen. Well, I guess 1 out of 2 ain't bad. It's Matt Gardner and Keith Melrose. Welcome. Welcome back, gents. How are we?
I'm well, yeah.
Great news. Matt Gardner.
I'm trying to figure out whether I was a good one or not there.
Well, yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah.
You can. It depends who wins the quiz at the end.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Stakes are high this week.
Yeah, they are. They're very. It's your reputations are very much on the line right now. Matt Gardner, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Excited this time of year. It's Tour de France.
Yes.
My favourite sporting event of the year. So, yeah.
You're on the wrong show then, mate.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, probably. I would like to talk about cycling more, but yeah.
Everyone else would like you to talk about it less.
Okay.
Actually.
Noted. Noted.
But are you competing this year, Keith?
No, the male mutard is not a thing. This is a mustard-coloured jumper, which I, as you might have noticed, I'm alternating with the maroon one. So I'm basically a 6-foot-tall rhubarb and custard.
You are. Which said with such intensity while you look directly into my eyes is quite scary, actually, Keith.
I have that effect on people, unfortunately. I can't be helped.
Do you walk up to people in the street and go, basically a 6-foot-tall rhubarb and custard?
No, because that would get me arrested. I can
would
say it while we're, mucking about in a basement getting filmed, but on the street, that's
Frowned upon.
Out of context, I don't think that makes it any better.
okay. Is that you telling me to back off?
I don't know. No, it's fine. Yeah, don't do it in the street, Keith. But if you want to go in a basement and film yourself,
I'm there. I'm up for the don't do it in the street bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Tour de France then. Yeah, and we'll be. You're going to try and shoehorn cycling into the show later on, aren't you?
I've been trying for a few weeks, but I'm definitely gonna try this week. Yep.
Okay.
Can do it.
Well, let's warm up. We'll just let's go through the gears slowly, and that's about all I've got really.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's probably more a driving thing as well. That you don't go through the gears slowly when you'll set off in a decent gear when you're cycling.
Yeah.
Cycling.
You're already out your depth here, Ross.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, fair. Well, unless I can compete in the Tour de France on a Rally Max, I think I'm going to struggle. To be fair, but let's look back at the weekend. But first, we start off the show with one lesson learned. Thank you for putting your lessons on the comments. We'll read at least one of those out at the end of this. But first things first, what do we learn from the weekend?
Yeah, well, the 3-year-old form is mustard, isn't it? I've been surprised. I said that a couple of weeks ago, surprised just how good the 3-year-old form is, even with the sprinters. The 3-year-old sprinters aren't getting that much weight for age. People talk about how, when the 3-year-olds meet the older horses, it's the weight for age that matters. It's not. They're not getting much, the sprinters, and the 3-year-old form is still miles better than the older horse form. I've not done the stats on it, but backing it just about blind would be doing you well. We saw a few examples at the weekend. Again, every time I watch a 3-year-old handicap, I'm sitting there thinking that's going to work out as good form. A few of them have. I think one of them's turning up on the hot list later. Mm-hmm. So I just keep learning that lesson, and it's a really good test case for people that think the weight for age is the big pulling power when it comes to 3-year-olds dominating. It really isn't. It's because they're unexposed.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll pick that up a little bit later because of the eclipse, of course. But I also want to briefly mention remind me to mention this, but whether the COVID 2-year-old season has affected the impact, because of course the 4-year-olds had that weird start to proceedings. Matt Gardner, what have you learned?
A little reminder for myself almost at the weekend is when you're analysing races, just don't be afraid to kind of mark performances up for various reasons. So there was just a couple of examples. There was Dream Casing at Thirsk, who draw bias at Thirsk, so he was finished second. He was gambled from like 40s into about 6s or something like that. He was in box 2, and the other top 8 or something were all drawn high. I think he's in at Catterick on Wednesday. And there's another 2-year-old, the parent at Sandown, it was another race where the principals all had experience. they're all prominent in a steadily run race, and this thing was green as anything and came from miles back to finish 4th. And they're the performances that you almost don't want to let them slide. You really want to be, if you're doing my ratings, notebooks or whatever, really kind of mark them down as they've achieved more than it looks like they have. And I've been analysing racing for years, and I still have to remind myself of that, if you know what I mean. So just really note those horses that kind of are better than the result for whatever reason it is.
It could be hard to like mark a horse up so that it would have won almost on the poundage you do.
Yeah.
The best handicappers I've dealt with, they're not scared to do that.
No, it's a good way to think about it is, where would this horse have finished, all things being equal? And if it had finished 2nd and it's finished 6th or whatever it is, rate it as finished in 2nd. And don't be afraid to do that for sure.
Yeah, and it's not about next time out going, well, this will definitely win, but it's about the fact that, look, I know I'm getting probably 3 or 4 points on the price at least, because people aren't taking that. They're taking it at face value. They haven't got the time to mark those things up. And often, I don't know about you, but the hardest thing about that, I find, is actually putting the note somewhere so that next time you actually see it and act upon it, which is the toughest thing, I think.
I think I've got about 18 expired notebooks that I don't use anymore, just from horses that are from 10 years ago, thinking, that's not relevant anymore.
You've missed so many winners. Yeah. I think the lesson for me at the weekend was, we'll talk about this a little bit later on as well, but ignore the hype and go and sometimes just look at the bare numbers. And that sometimes a visual performance or a particular number or a finishing position by a horse can be very deceptive. And I had Grand Dam doing pretty much exactly the same, if not slightly better speed figure, getting beaten 10 lengths by Inspiral as I did Heredia winning the Sandringham handicap. And some people look at that and you go, wow, yeah, but it was a disappointing run. There was a disappointing run for Grand Dam was written in some of the analysis. And I thought, this is a horse who started racing in April on its 3rd start, stepped up to Group 1 company against one of the best 3-year-old fillies we've seen in years. I didn't think it was a disappointing performance. I thought it was a more than reasonable performance, and people can go, and discount something based on visual performance or literally the number next to its name. It's got a duck egg next to its name, therefore it was a disappointing performance. And I don't think that's too simplistic.
I think that really falls into handicaps. These good handicaps that we talk about. If you finish 10th in one of those, you're really interested in a lesser race, even though it looks like you're not. Same idea.
Yeah. So get in touch on the comments below as well with your lessons. A couple of people did last week, and we will read them out on the show. John Jenkins, not the trainer, I assume, said, I learned not to let a big weight put me off when betting in handicap races, and also that this year's Epsom Derby form is very good, and that some good form turf horses can transfer it to the all-weather. Namely sense of duty, but he still does not like the all-weather. However, it confuses and frustrates me. I think that goes for a lot of people, John. And you got a reply from plucky young racing analyst Keith Melrose, who got in touch with John to say, I find the all-weather tracks are all a law unto themselves. And your order of preference, Keith, can you remember what your order of preference is?
Very roughly, the big gap was Chelmsford's 4th. I had a Lingfield 5th, and the big gap's that one. Because Wolves, it's just a tight track, and you know how races pan out there. Is it Southall next?
And it's not, no, you
Kempton,
can't even remember your own.
Wolves, Kempton, Southall, Chelmsford, Lingfield, Newcastle.
Yeah,
so I got 2 and 3 mixed up.
You did. I'm sorry, you failed the interview to be yourself.
Sorry.
But there you go. But thanks for getting in touch, John. Really appreciate it. So put what you've learned from this week's racing on the comments below, and we'll read it out on next week's show. Looking back at the weekend's racing then, primarily from Haydock and Sandown, with of course the Coral Eclipse, the feature of the weekend. And it looked a cracking race on paper and didn't disappoint. So you could have backed any of the 6 and at some point thought you were in with a chance. But it went to the French Raider Verdani for Jean-Claude Rouget and of course Christophe Soumillon, who was so confident he was going to ride the winner, he started celebrating as they left the stalls. But let's look at that race in particular, at a few of the angles underneath the surface, perhaps, but it was a good race. Mm-hmm. It didn't disappoint in some ways, did disappoint in others. That tends to happen when you have these clear feature races of a weekend, when they're hyped up and you've got that clash of generations, that clash of form lines. It's impossible for it to be as satisfying as you want it to be, but no shortage of excitement and a vintage Soumillon, not overconfident ride, but purely confident ride. He knew what he was going to do, and he did it.
I was sort of like, we've been enjoying this from Simeon for 20 years, haven't we? I looked up Dalakani when he mentioned him on Saturday. That was 20 years ago. So yeah, it's very much vintage Simeon. I think what you say about the race is absolutely right, in that when you've got a concentrated race of 6 top-class horses, they're all there on their own merits. We slag off pacemakers a lot, but that's what effect they have on races. They can have a horse that makes sure the race is run in a more fair way. Whereas Alan Kerr, who ended up sort of in the lead, didn't want to do too much in front because he was there as a runner. Simeon I thought he was great behind Native Trail. You didn't appreciate that as well. I noticed it because he drafted him, didn't he? We're talking, if you watch cycling.
Already, we're in
straight in there.
Look at this. Look at that smile on his face.
Look at his little face.
Yeah, very happy.
But I don't watch as much cycling as you, but I do watch the Grand Tours and I watch some of the other big sort of one-day races, and I think in any sprint there, it's always the case that you come out as late as possible. I remember when I first started watching it, Cavendish did it 100 yards from the line, and people went, "Well, you were out too early there." But Simeon drafted Native Trail all the way, didn't he? And then he pulled him out, a furlong and a bit out, and then just kept on and got past him. But it was...
He also drafted the correct horse, in a sense, because I was at Sandown, I went into the paddock, and there was Alan Kerr and there was Native Trail, and I thought, wow, I didn't realise how small Alan Kerr was. And then I saw Native Trail next to everything else, and I thought, oh my God, no, it's just Native Trail is a monster. He's huge. And you had Native Trail and Bay Bridge, who looked like, they should have been policing the event. And you had all the other runners. And Verdane is built like he races. He is a little bit more compact. He is a little bit more racy than the others. And that's partly why Simeon gets on so well with him, I imagine, because they match each other's strengths.
Yeah, it was brilliantly well judged. And you talk about cycling. Some riders are better at kind of judging that sort of thing than others. There's a lot of timing goes into it and that sort of thing. And he just nailed it. But breaking down that race, it was an interesting race sectionally. They didn't go that quick early. It was pretty slow. It wasn't that fast at the finish either. So it sort of suggests they got racing far enough out, but they finished quite bunched. And kind of Verdane's skill set played really well into that. It's the one thing that's stopping me sounding the good horse klaxon kind of fully with him.
Is it because you left it at home as well?
It's the best the klaxon.
It's locked away in the vault at home. Yeah.
It's on the handlebars of his bike.
Yeah, it's just like I do think he's a good horse, but I think that suited him quite well. But what I did like about him is that he looked really game and willing into the bargain. Like he really knuckled down in that last furlong when it looked like he had it won, but then he had to battle a bit more.
But that race and the Prix de Jockey Club that he won, both times they finished quite fast, but not massively fast. And he doesn't look like these French 10 furlong horses are used to, Scaletti being one that they just really quick and nicely. But what we were saying before is that horses that, a horse with a really good turn of foot doesn't necessarily look like they've got one in a steadily run race. Because he only made up, a length and a half, 2 lengths on Native Trail in that last furlong, but that was while they were all accelerating.
That's the thing, it's the visual perception in it. So all of those horses aren't slowing down, they're all kind of quickening at the same time. He just did it better than the rest of them, which says plenty about
And then Mishriff coming at him at the finish was because Mishriff made his move is later than anybody else. So at the line, he looks like he's closing.
Yeah.
So that's covering how Simeon executed it well. What about the rest of the jockeys who spent the vast majority of the Sandown card bunching up over on that far side rail? And for example, the Grand Dames race, I thought Ryan Moore rode that to perfection, but then it backfired on him with Piqual later on the card. And it's interesting, it would have been interesting to see whether Simeon would have executed that had he ridden on the rest of the card, because he clearly turned up with a plan. Mm-hmm. Is there a potential that the other jockeys were riding Sandown or riding the wrong race?
I think with Sandown as well, that something that learned to me, I've not watched Windsor much before this season because I was always doing stairs and jumpers, so I didn't really watch an awful lot of Windsor races in depth. And my friend said to me, this horse, he hung left, but I'd forgive him that because it's Windsor. And I thought, why is that? So I looked at Windsor, got the satellite image up of how it is, and very shortly after the line at Windsor, they turn left quite sharply. So, and then at Sandown, on the round course, just after the finish line, there's a kink to the right, isn't there? And then you start going out in the country. And on the straight course, shortly after it finishes, they turn left to get back and go towards the chute to come back to the stands. So I think if they pulled horses out, they'd hang, potentially.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I think a horse that you pull out at Sandown is potentially going to hang right for that, anticipating that bend that's past the line.
Yeah.
And on the straight course, hang left to anticipate that bend that's past the line.
So and part of that, maybe part of the Sumion celebration perhaps at the end was also not really anticipate. He wasn't thinking about anything apart from the horse that he was riding, the race he was riding. I'm going to win this race. But you're saying that actually the downside of being so experienced at the track is that you've got it in the back of your mind, like, oh, this is a dodgy junction, like when you're driving.
A little bit, yeah, and he's thought about the winning post was where he was thinking about. You know, we talked about how Mishrif was finishing, but it was only because he made his run right at the end of the race. And people project past the finish line, but we forget they're only riding to that finish line, and that's exactly what Sumion did.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Other jockeys maybe are going, oh, well, I'd hang right if I went out there.
Yeah.
I do sometimes think as a jockey, you're a bit damned if you do and damned if you don't, in a way, because if you sit and wait for a gap and it doesn't come, then obviously you're in trouble. If you sacrifice a load of ground by switching wide, stay on and don't get there, you look a bit daft. Equally, if you do that and then a gap did open up on the inside, you think, well, why don't you just stay there?
I agree with that completely, and I know exactly what you're saying. However, what's the Sandown Straight? What is it? Two and a bit?
At least, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's like 3, isn't there?
Yeah,
where that 3.
4 is where it intersects with the sprint course, isn't it?
Yeah. So you've got what? You've got about 3 furlongs. You've got an incredibly wide track. Like, look where Sinjari came from.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm just trying to rationalise why it happens.
Yeah. It just frustrates me over and over again when you're watching a race, when you're thinking it's a 6-runner race. And I know I don't want to oversimplify it. I don't want to become the punter at home who throws the remote at the telly because their horse got beat at short head. But you do watch it thinking, get out wide and unleash your run instead of waiting for a gap that may or may not appear.
It's not even like you have to sacrifice cover to do that, because Sumion did exactly that.
Yeah, track Sumion.
Just track
That's
Sumion.
the plan, yeah.
Yeah, go, oh, Christoph, you're going, great, I'll follow you, mate, rather than, where's Sumion going?
The problem with tracking Christoph Sumion is you'll probably always be a length further back than you need to be.
Yeah, that is true, yeah. And I did think, my initial impressions of that were, as they turned to the home straight, I did think, Verdani's got a bit on here. So, do any of us know what we're talking about?
That's for the viewers to judge, I think.
Very debatable, isn't it? Yeah.
Don't judge that. Put it in the comments. No, don't do that. Elsewhere on the Sandown weekend card, we had an impressive staying performance from Coltrane. We mentioned the stayers last week. He'll be thrown into the mix, of course, for the Andrew Balding team. And we also had an impressive performance from Russell in the Coral Charge, the 5-furlong Group 3, a horse who has improved from being a Shadwell cast-off, albeit a better Shadwell cast-off, because he'd still shown form for Marcus Dragoning early on. He was rated 81, he'd already won. Some of these Shadwell cast-off, they've run 3 races over a mile, done nothing, and shrewd people like the horse watchers go, that's a sprinter, not a miler. Rasa was a bit different. It was more like, that's a sprinter who you definitely shouldn't be selling because we know how good he could be.
That was a sell-off, wasn't it? And that was a gold rush when Shadwell had that big sell-off. And the horse watchers, I mean, it's not about Shadwell with the horse watchers. I happen to be pally with some of them. There's actually a quiz team in Halifax that's me, 2 of the horse watchers, and Timeform's mile handicapper. So I do know them quite well. And their MO is not about looking at Shadwell, although the fact those are well-bred horses does come into their consideration. Their MO is to look at trainers that they don't think are up to much and send them to Mick Appleby after that.
Yeah.
So, Shadwell, and a lot of the big breeding operations do send a proportion of their horses to trainers that probably don't deserve ammunition that good, to be honest.
Yeah.
It used to be that, they got the Russell of Marcus Dragoning. And a few years ago, Charlie Hills was very popular because he got very well-bred horses. And then there's other trainers as well that are very popular at the sales.
Charles O'Brien, I think they bought a few off him.
They got a few of him. Was that Big Country one of his potentially? They just look for trainers that they think underachieve and take them to trainers who overachieve. Mick Appleby does that, and as does David O'Mara, who you have horses with now. That's their MO. It's not particularly difficult, but they're just very, very good at it.
Yes, yeah. And 10 grand for a horse rated 81. I mean, 10 grand for a horse rated 81 was remarkable anyway, but like you said, it might have got lost in the mix in terms of the dispersal. And now won a Group 3, and I presume we'll rock up in a Nunthorpe?
Goodwood, York, and then Breeders' Cup, I think, is a plan from what I was being told, yeah. And I had to congratulate, I'd backed McBahy on Saturday, and I had to congratulate them.
Yeah.
Well done, lads. I backed the horse that got beat a neck and shaped at least as well as yours.
Yeah.
You know why he got beat though?
Why so?
He went down the rail.
It was, well,
He went down the rail.
He was drawn in one.
He was drawn in one. He was drawn in one. But still. But again, don't do it.
I know.
Unless you have to do it. In which case, still don't do it. But anyway, well done to the horse watchers. For 10 grand, you can get Matt Gardner and train him up to be a Group 3 sprinter. If you're lucky, isn't that right, Matt?
Very doubtful. Very doubtful. I need further to get into my stride, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Early days yet. He's still a young lad. Speaking of going down the rail, Rab Havlin certainly might well have regretted that decision in the Lancashire Oaks at the weekend, or at least he did when the steward slapped him with a 5-day ban for what? Burrowing? Is that a term? Tunnelling? What was the exact? I mean, careless riding, dangerous riding. Where's the threshold there?
Dangerous riding never gets invoked, does it? It's famously 13 years since a dangerous riding ban got out. So
I think you have to stand up in your stirrups, jump off your horse, and onto another horse.
I don't think you can technically get done for it without wielding a weapon of some sort.
Yeah, a musket.
A mace.
Yeah, just around like that. Yeah,
like road rash or something.
Was that dangerous riding? He was handling it carefully though.
Had it in his right hand. He had the mace in his right hand.
He did. Yeah. I mean, it was an incredibly impressive performance, and like you said, a Group 1 filly with stamina and a turn of foot. I mean,
I
Triomphe. Is it? We joked at the start, or maybe on the first episode, that if we were replicating a jumps show, everything would be towards the arm.
I mean, the stepping stones for her are probably Yorkshire Oaks. And then Arc, I imagine. But so I had a look at her.
Do you think so? Do you think you'll go Arc? I think they'll aim her at the Champions Day race.
Maybe.
The filly and mare.
Yeah, but you hope not, don't you?
It's Gosden's style.
Yeah.
It's always been his style.
Her profile sort of deceived me a little bit. Like I sort of overlooked how kind of progressive and good she was last year. She got beat on the July course by a horse that got loose on the front end. That was the only horse that beat her last year. And you kind of think, oh well, this isn't a massive surprise actually.
She was dead impressive at Donny, wasn't
she? Yeah. And it's also worth mentioning, I think, as well, the Gosden ability to get a top class horse ready first time out, because there was a little bit of chat, I think, especially when Inspiral was making her reappearance, but also Mishriff at the weekend. There was a lot of chat about, but they won't be ready for this, they'll have other targets. And Inspiral, Mishriff could have, should have, whatever, at the weekend, and Free Wind. We all know how good Gosden is, but this seems to be a narrative at the moment that he's not getting them ready and raring to go first time out, but the form book is telling you otherwise.
Is it because of the horses he gets? He has the more traditional middle distance type of bred horses, and it's not as easy.
You expect to take a bit.
Exactly. You expect them to take a run or two to get going, and they don't seem to.
And he's maybe a little more aware than some trainers as well of all those big end of season targets that he really does target. And he kind of thinks, well, we'll go softly and sort of peak for that sort of second half. He's really good at that.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, like what we were saying before, though, he's one of those weird trainers who, yes, peaks late on, but also gets some tip-top first time out.
Just really good.
He's just very, very really good, isn't he? Yeah.
Didn't we do this last week? Some people are just bloody good trainers.
Really good.
That's it. That's the quote. Other things to mention from Haydock. Really good race won by Nathaniel Green. I thought that was a really good 3-year-old handicap. Tashcan, Sir Ron Priestley, Subjectivist have all come out of that and gone on to be.
I think it illustrates a really simple point. That one is that it's an 100 grand race, and yes, as punters we might not be thinking much about that, but as form students we absolutely should.
Yeah.
100 grand race is going to be good.
Yes.
We're going to come on to Royal Ascot as well. How good that's working out. Good races are good.
Yes.
It's very glib to say, but don't overlook it.
But the 3-year-old handicaps in particular, you look at a 33-1 outsider and you think, wow, you've shown a bit here. Whereas you do occasionally get an older horse handicap where they're just tumbling down the weights and they're running for the sake of it.
The point you made earlier about how on these valuable 3-year-old handicaps, they're all off for their lives as well. There's no another day, there's no Melrose next. 100 grand race, 50 grand to the winner. Everything there is trying like a bear.
And like those horses, trying like a bear.
Yeah, that's in the drop downs as well, isn't it?
Is it? Tried like a bear.
Yeah.
How does a bear try?
I don't know. It's just an old phrase, isn't it? It's just one of those.
No, I like it. I'm just trying to wonder how a bear tries more than any other
If a
animal.
bear was trying, you would notice.
You'd know it, wouldn't you?
You would be like,
Get out of the way.
that bear is trying.
Yeah.
You're not going to go, that sausage dog is trying. But a bear.
I think normally if the sentence started with "that bear is trying," it would end with "to rip my face off."
Well, exactly.
So,
But your dashhound isn't going to do that, is he? He's
No.
not going to rip your face off. Little Frankel, he's not going to get up on his back legs and savage you.
I don't know. Maybe it depends what you've done to him. Yeah, worth watching out for that form. Double cherried, things didn't go right for him. That bizarre law form from Goodwood as well. Nathaniel Green and Valsad were in that. They finished first and third. And Madam Ambassador runs out of that this afternoon. Might have won. This might be an even better point than it currently is, or I might have undermined myself by throwing that in. Other things to mention: the first nursery of the weekend, of the season. Sorry.
Yeah, we had a couple. We had two, I think, so far. One at Chelmsford, one at Haydock, wasn't it? Yeah.
Ramazan won it at the weekend out of Royal Ascot, which we'll get to in a second. And the Millmans won the Chelmsford Nursery with a horse rated 48, who'd shown diddly squat in good races though. Touching on what we were saying earlier on.
Yeah.
Be honest, did you identify that horse as the nursery project?
Oh, no.
But they're all nursery projects, aren't they?
I mean, I did actually go back and watch a couple of that one's races, and you think, well, it's shown a bit, but it's not enough to sort of hang your hat on for a nursery. But getting these early marks, it's always interesting. We touched on last week, getting your opinion tested against the BHA. There are a couple that I sort of picked out from the weekend. One that hasn't got a mark, Slippin' Jimmy at Beverley, a Fire horse. Was drawn badly, positioned badly, and basically has been brought along for a handicap mark. So that'll be an interesting one. And a new definition, I'm much higher on than the handicapper. I'm 94 and they've got 85. That's in Ascot on Friday or Saturday, I think.
+9 for a nursery is very high.
It's
Isn't it?
Mad.
It's about as big as you're going to get. Yeah, but
New definition. Who?
So James Tate.
Yes.
Finished second to Lady Bullet, who was sixth in the Albany. Second to Bolt Action, who was sixth in the Windsor Castle. Went to Kempton and beat the winner of the Valuable York Seller for Johnston in a really good time. Basically, just looked at mid-90s horse at least.
Yeah.
So might be wrong.
No, but it was entered in the Dragon Stakes, wasn't it? So it was entered in a listed race.
Yeah, but they've got 95 and it's in a nursery at Ascot on Friday, I think it is.
Nice.
Sorry, it's got 85, we're at 94. So.
Okay. Speaking of that, obviously Ascot at the weekend, Newmarket July Festival we'll get to a little bit later on, but we do have Ascot coming up. There's going to be a lot of Royal Ascot horses, of course, running this weekend. And notable how well the form is working out across the board from Royal Ascot. Everyone came away from the meeting saying an incredible Royal Ascot. Every single race we talked about had some sort of interest, and it is working out that way. This is just this weekend and yesterday. Takarid Bay, Ramazan, Get Shirty, Swayze, Grand Dam, Sinjari, Lakota Blue, Miss Mai Tai, and Claim the Crown all won in the past 3 days coming out of races at Royal Ascot. That is currently, from what I can tell, 17 winners from 80 runners. That's 21.25%, £15.94 level stake profit. And actual versus expected of 1.18. That is insane, really.
To be able to back form that everybody saw and make a profit.
Yeah,
That's what makes me notice.
And over 1 in 5 of them win, and a considerable profit. And the two at Ripon last night, because I researched this yesterday afternoon and I thought, I've got to chuck them in a double. And they both won at 5s and 4-1 at Ripon. They're not. I mean, they were well beaten. Claim the Crown was out the back in the Britannia, and Miss Mai Tai never figured in the Albany. But that's telling you how good those races are.
That Sinjari one was the painful one for me. That couldn't have shaped any better at Ascot. And was it 7-2 or something it's won at? And when I saw the result, a little yelp of pain when I saw that. But yeah, good. Like you said just a minute ago, good races make for good form, and you kind of just got to back it.
Yeah.
The fact that you can back such an obvious angle and make money is just something that everybody should know and everybody should think about.
Yeah. That tells you what is the difficult thing, and the thing we're trying to cover in this show about the flat season is it's an obvious angle, but there's so much going on, it's easy to miss.
Absolutely.
You think, that ran Ascot, didn't it? Or they look at it and go, that was disappointing. Got beat 10 lengths at Ascot. You think, got beat 10 lengths in the best possible race any of these horses could have run in up till now.
If we didn't know already, it underlines how hard those Ascot races are.
Yes.
Doesn't it? Yeah. If all those winners are coming out, you think, they were interesting when I backed that horse that got smashed out of sight.
And it should also tell you to wind your neck in at Ascot if you're inclined towards fancy bets like I am. That might run well. No, it's not going to run well enough at Royal Ascot, lads.
Yeah, the barrier to entry in the winners' enclosure is so far past that. This might be worth a poke. It's like, no, you need to be dead sure.
You're not worth a poke at Royal Ascot.
That's the title for the show. One more thing to mention then from the weekend was the Appleby 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds now coming back this season. Hurricane Lane beaten comfortably once again. Still haven't seen Adiyar, and albeit last year's form we were getting excited about the 3-year-olds, it's not working out. And how much, as I mentioned earlier, does that have to do with the fact that those 3-year-olds were coming off the back of a truncated, unprecedented 2-year-old season, and now they're meeting potentially better conditioned and trained 3-year-olds this time around?
I read it slightly differently. He's had 3 of these proper Derby horses, Appleby now. He's had Massar, who won the Derby, and he had Adiyar and Hurricane Lane. Massar was never the same again. Hurricane Lane was genuinely disappointing on Sunday, having been perfectly excusable at Ascot. I've not seen Adiyar yet. We know from Aidan O'Brien, who was probably the best trainer of a middle distance horse there's ever been, that he sometimes struggles with these horses when they get a bit older. An inordinate amount of them fell off a cliff a little bit. I don't know what it is, but they're obviously quite hard to keep going and keep with into their 4 and 5-year-old seasons. Certainly the colts, because he does very well with the fillies and mares. But
is there a potential though that it actually, like Broome for example, is that you have that season where you're primed for all those 3-year-old races, you then feel it a little bit the next year. If they came back as 5-year-olds, like the 2-year-old to 4-year-old gap, is there potentially a 3-year-old to 5-year-old gap as well?
Wouldn't be out the question for a certain type of horse. The horses like Mogul, they had a lot of racing at 3, and Japan was very similar. And Japan had a go at 5, didn't he? And he never looked like coming back. So I don't know what it is with these horses, but I've seen 2 of the best trainers in the world struggle with them in an inordinate amount. So maybe it's not as straightforward as we think.
Yeah.
This idea of getting these middle distance types to keep going on at 4.
Okay. Obviously, they might well have been involved in ARC chat until the disappointments, but plenty of them on the weekend. Free win. Alpinista, Torquay Tasso, of course, last year's ARC winner, did win in Hamburg. I don't know if you're following the Hamburg form at home. And also potentially your Mishrifts, probably not Verdane. Obviously, they're going to go Irish Champion Stakes by the sounds of things for him. But it is all hotting up. And we're already getting excited about October, aren't we? But that's the flat season for you. But plenty more to talk about before that. We've got a cracking week coming up, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, it's the hot list. What's made it to this week's hot list then? The races that are throwing up winners left, right and centre. We'll start off with the win for Quest for Fun at Thirsk a couple of weeks ago. Julie Camacho's charge went in again yesterday at Ayr to give that form a bit of a boost. And Lovely Manor and a couple of others down the field have also done wonders for that form. Keep an eye on Gathen Far coming out of that for Tracy Waggett on Friday, and also Wentworth Falls, the old rogue, going for a big sprint on Saturday afternoon. Also worth mentioning how well the Windsor Castle is working out. Of course, Little Big Bear is entered in the July Stakes, as is Chateau, who comes out of that Windsor Castle form as well, but it has thrown up winners left, right and centre over the past week. Rocket Rodney, Wadow and Ramazan have gone in. Silencer and Eddie's Boy have hit the frame. And as well as the 2 July Stakes entrants, you've also got Union Court, Carsiv and Farshot entered in nurseries later in the week, and Yahtzee runs in a novice at Lingfield on Wednesday. And one race that doesn't have any entries this week, but is working out too well to ignore, is the Nottingham Handicap won by Pickwell, who of course probably should have won at Sandown at the weekend, but Elena's Gift, who was down the field, did win at the weekend. And we also had the third bolt up at Haydock on Friday night. Basically every horse that's come out of that race has either finished first or second on their next start, and it's worth watching where the runners go next time out. So there are your red hot form lines for this week. Hopefully the hot list will work out nicely once again here, and good luck this weekend if you do follow them. Looking ahead to this week then, we've got the Newmarket July Festival, and as the Bangles would have said, we've also got just another manic Saturday to get stuck into. Let's have a look at what to expect from Newmarket this week. Thursday, Friday and Saturday, of course, a midweek festival with Saturday as the feature day. Oh, I don't know what to think about it, but let's not get into that. That's for every other person to argue about. Keith and Matt, we've got a lot to come up to this weekend. Worth mentioning as well that we do have a Racing Post Members Club offer, 50% off for your first 3 months. So that's going to cover Newmarket, it's going to cover Goodwood, it's going to cover York, it's going to cover Doncaster.
Cover the art class.
It'll get to the art, won't it?
It'll cover the art.
Good stuff.
So then, get the art done, and then obviously if for the jump season, it's you're back to full back. But the 50% off will take you through the rest of the flat season.
Yeah.
We've only got 3 months. Well, Champions Day yet.
Yeah.
Breeders' Cup. Hong Kong.
Oh, there'll be another offer by then, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
But there's loads of stuff on there. Obviously, the replays are the most useful things for watching free wind 5, 6, 7, or 8 times, and also. Your esteemed colleague, Mr. Graham Rodway, has got properly stuck into the Newmarket July Festival.
We started this new thing called the Punting Club Masterclass, where we just get like this show, we get an excuse to get nerdy.
Yeah.
And Rodders did that last week. He wrote a really incisive piece on the July meeting, as you alluded to at the start. It's a meeting that doesn't get a lot of love. This gave him a chance to step back, run some numbers, and get into it properly. And it came out really well. You compared him very well off air. He's like Les Dawson playing the piano, Graham Rodway. Yes, he puts in his odd bum notes, but he's doing that very deliberately because he could play the piano brilliantly when he tries. That piece was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that I thought, I'm going to look into this for the flat pack. And then I read Graham's thing on Friday before I went out and thought,
he's done it.
He's eating my lunch here.
Yeah.
Is
he bullying you, Keith?
Well, he might be. I might have to get HR involved.
Okay. Well, what do we need to know for the July Festival? Of course, like I said, it does get because people already they're thinking Goodwood, aren't we? We're thinking King George and Goodwood, and it kind of slides in. And I do think there's a slight July course, not anti-July course, but because it pops up for a few months and then disappears again, people are like, oh yeah, of course. The July course.
People get encouraged to be lazy with it as well. I've done it in the past, I know this. Because there's a very similar track across the roads, you sort of try and conflate the two to a large extent. And because there's the straight miles with an uphill finish, it's very easy to do, but it really isn't. We've made the point about how it's much more suited to front runners, the July course. And Graham Rodway's figures there, he wrote them down. I forget what they are, but basically you're profiting to the tune of hundreds by backing front runners on the July course.
This obviously isn't the case for how it actually unfolds, but from a punting perspective, I think part of the problem with it as well is the camera angle. There's some camera angles, and I think the July course is one of the worst, where you think, I've got a chance here, and if you could actually see, you'd realise you had no chance, and actually that the horse in front is much more comfortably.
It's like that in the stands as well. Have you ever been to the July course?
Yes, yeah.
The stands are exactly the same. I watched was it Marchand D'Or win the July Cup, and it was on a Friday, and I couldn't tell. They were just coming towards me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and that's the tough thing, isn't it? Because they are it looks exciting. But it does probably disguise how the track actually rides a little bit.
I think you're probably right. We talked about how it goes. Well, Graham mentioned how it goes down, and then a bit of kick up at the end.
Yeah,
and you're
Bitcoin.
No, it's opposite. Is that the opposite? No, I don't know. You'll like this bit as well because I compared it with a little bit like if you're riding the bike again.
Yep.
And if you knew there was a hill,
there he goes.
If you knew there was a short, sharp hill at the end, what would you do? You'd pedal like Billy to get your speed up, and then hope the speed carries you at least part of the way up that hill. Which is why, even though it's a stiff finish,
is it like ET?
Like ET, you go flying over. Just watch.
That's my level of cycling knowledge.
Creative Force just going past the moon on Saturday as he takes off at the finish.
There you go. Yes, be all right to buy Spielberg.
But even though it's actually technically stiffer, they finish higher relative to the start over a mile in the July course than they do on the Rolling Mile. What happens in between is so different that it actually makes the July course more of a front runner's track.
And coming off the back of Ascot as well, you have to reset your brain a little bit, don't you? It's a very different test, and that's kind of relevant to a couple that are going to be in the July Cup, really.
Yeah, I mean that is the whole thing. Is that the Newmarket Ascot switch? It is, like I said, I think I was talking to Sean Quinn yesterday, and he was saying about a horse he had entered, and he said, "Oh, they just didn't come back to him." And I said, Sean, can you name me a track where they do come back to you? And he went, yeah, fair enough. And we were talking about that. Ascot is a closers track. Most of them aren't closers tracks, and some of them are proper front runners tracks, and this is a proper front runners track. So you do have to look at those horses who were suited by the way the race unfolded at Ascot and question whether it's going to happen again. You then have horses that, like Perfect Power, who won over 6 furlongs on fast ground at Newmarket, and then 1 over 6 furlongs of fast ground at Royal Ascot, and maybe some horses are just too good to be put into definitions like that.
Yeah, I hope you've dug out your klaxon because you might need it for perfect power.
Yeah.
He gets half a go so far.
Yeah, he might need to get the toot.
The full toot.
He's got the clacks, but it's not on. Yeah.
I mean, I question a little bit whether it's really going to suit him. Same with Artorias, who finished really strongly at Ascot, didn't he, and didn't get there. He's going to have, if he goes in the same way, he's going to face an uphill battle. I do think Perfect Power is good. I'm just not quite sure that it's going to really, really suit him down to the ground.
I think we thought about Artorias as well, is that if he'd shaped like that at Ascot, but he was trained in Ireland rather than Australia, I don't think he'd be half as hyped up as he is.
Yeah.
Everybody just fears the Aussie sprinters, with good reason to an extent, but you take each case on its merits. Plenty others in that race finished similarly strongly from just as unpromising a position.
You've had a cheeky dabble, I think. Matt Gardner's cheeky dabble
yeah.
in a new section.
Yeah. So playing into the track thing, so Emiratiana, who the Platinum Jubilee was basically his first run of the season because he was in Maidan for a couple of runs. It didn't go to plan. That was like 3 months off, and for like 5 of those 6 furlongs, he shaped really well. He's second in a Nunthorpe, won a Sprint Cup. He's just much speedier and probably not an Ascot horse. Whereas he's the sort of horse that I can see being on the front end and just sort of skipping away from him. And he didn't run very well in it last year, but he improved after that. He sort of really hit his straps this time of year, kind of late July into the August. So he was about 33s, and he's got the ability. It's just if he's back to that sort of level of form last year.
Now, we espouse a lot about specialisation on this show, but there is one downside to specialisation, and that means it's that it becomes very hard to admit when somebody made a really good point you've missed. And I don't
think that's specialisation. I think that's ego.
That's massively ego. And you went through them in an Atiana case, and I thought, yeah, all right, I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously the July Cup Saturday's feature. Well, I say Saturday's feature. There's 400 features on Saturday, isn't there? But it is. Yeah, there's something about you put about the Thursday here, the Bahrain Trophy, the July Stakes, an incredible 3-year-old 6 furlong handicap where they split into 2 groups, and it's a mad gallop from the front.
There's a triple crown of 3-year-olds 6 furlong sprint handicaps, and it's the York Charity Race, which you know all about. You go to the Stewards Cup eventually, and this is the middle leg.
Yeah,
it's a really, really hot race. It's got heritage handicap status, and it's I look at that. The Thursday of the July meeting was the sort of card that in the old days you'd have gone, is that even going to be on the telly?
Yeah, is
it just going to have to be RTV? Whereas it's obviously on now, and the 4 races, it's the Bahrain Trophy is the first proper St Ledger trial. Then you've got the July Stakes, which again, it's one of the...
That's probably Persian Force versus Little Big Bear.
Yeah.
And maybe that Phi thing, Clear Point, who looks kind of untested but pretty good. Yeah, that could be really good.
It's generally a very good 2-year-old race for this time of year. You've got the big handicap there, and then you've got the Princess of Wales Stakes, which... Yeah. Look, it's one of your sort of standards. It's one of that massive diet of Group 2 and Group 3 mile-and-a-half races. It's probably the best of them.
Other races to mention, of course, we've got the Falmouth, which could be.
Is she going to tell us anything new? Probably not.
Integral? No, I wouldn't have thought so. Only that. I mean, it's just nice to see a horse keep winning, isn't it?
Well, it is. Hope she just goes and takes on the best of them at some point. Hope she meets that Homeless Songs at very least.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Big time, yeah.
And there's another absolute corker of a 3-year-old handicap as well, over 10 furlongs, isn't there?
Yeah.
That used to be my division, that sort of middle distance type thing. I love that race. It's always really deep, really strong, and you get that kind of big field classic, like you said, spread out across the track. It just always makes for good form. And Mark Johnson's record in it is crazy. 6 out of the last 10 and 4 on the bounce or something like that.
He has run 208 horses.
That's true. That's the thing with Johnson angles. You've got to get through all.
You've got to wade through the noise, don't you? For sure. But
I think you just have like a fleet of trailers all the way down the A64.
I used to hate the yard, but I've sort of learned to embrace it a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to do it. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it means watching the late markets, to be honest.
Yeah. Or just go in, if the form is 07357, you can still have a comfortable bet on it
Still-
if you
still
think you've
good
got
to
it at the
go.
right time.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's got a 1 beside its name, you usually lay them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just completely avoid them. A couple of entries in that. Reel them in probably won't get in, I don't think, for Hughie Morrison. But New London, I thought was very interesting. Some really warm form. That change into the guard form at Chester, he was all the rage for that. Got on the wrong end of a very good ride and a very good horse. And his
just didn't
previous
turn
one
up, did
before
he?
that. No, he was well. He turned up. I think he was just everything went right for the winner. But in hindsight, he's in a handicap against a Group 2 horse, isn't he?
There's a couple at the Ascot handicaps that might run in there. Haggis, Unafis and Post Impressionist.
Yeah.
Elder reform from Newcastle, and Unafis basically just wants to step up and trip. He ran over a mile at Ascot and just got outpaced. So
And Israel will turn up again at that
Yeah.
that decent race as well. So yeah, that could be an absolute cracker. And also worth mentioning, I've put the Cherry Hint in here. I can't remember what the
It's the Duchess of Cambridge.
Duchess of
that, isn't it?
Cambridge, yeah.
that's it. Yeah,
Just think of it, it's named after Kate Middleton, isn't it now?
it is. Yes, as you know, maybe we all should be. The 16 and last 25 came out of Royal Ascot, but 3 winners from only 7 entries came out of the Airlie Stud Stakes, won by Statuette, where Badup.
Bad. I don't know.
Badup.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Badup.
What with a little tap?
Yeah, well, it's
that's how you do it.
BADB, so I don't know if it's Badup.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it is good.
For Donica O'Brien, finished second in the Airlie Stud and is entered. And Maria Branwell represents the Queen Mary form potentially as well, stepping up in trip. So plenty of interest at the July Festival this week. Is there one standout for you that you're looking forward to?
No. I mean, I want to see a good Perfect Powers. I hope he runs here rather than in France.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I'm wanting, because I think he's a lot of the interest in the July Cup. I'm not sure. It's not a very, you've backed him right on it. It's a sort of race where you can look at horses that price, because without a Perfect Power, it becomes a bit ordinary, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. So watch out for the July Festival and read Rodders' opinions. Well, not even his opinions, his hard work, his number crunching, and back those front runners, because Les Dawson has told you so. As for the rest of the week, so we've got Newmarket, but we've also got Ascot, we've got York, we've got Chester, we've got Salisbury, we've got, I mean, you name it, we've pretty much got it at the weekend. And like I said, if it wasn't for one meeting, the other one would be a feature. It's a punter's nightmare. It's an analyst's nightmare. It's a jockey's nightmare. You're probably missing out on 3 winners you could have ridden at other tracks, because you've got to get a Ascot to ride one. Is there anything particularly looking forward to from either of the tracks?
The Manobo in the Silver Cup at York, he looked really good last year, and then he ran in Maidan in the Gold Cup, got beat because he was too keen. Then he ran in the Coronation Cup, and it's probably just not his sort of race. If he's learned to settle and they can make him into a stayer, I still think he's potentially kind of top-notch stayer, if he can just sort of calm down a little bit.
Okay, so Manobo then potentially, albeit he does go into the Adyar, Hurricane Lane,
Yeah, there is that, yeah.
Godolphin 4-year-old angle, which we talked about earlier on. It's not really working out. And there's a sprint at York, Keith.
I'm more excited about the City Wall Stakes than I am about the July Cup. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I was saying to Matt off there, I went down the card. It's all in alphabetical order on Monday because the weights aren't on yet. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting. Oh, this has got a look of a good betting race, this. Bottom horse is Winter Power.
Yeah.
Now, we all know Winter Power won the Nunthorpe last year. The thing goes, oh, she's a York horse, right? But just because she's a York horse doesn't mean you can ignore her running 60 pounds below form at Haydock and Ascot, does it? You know, she's run bad. She's not a bad horse elsewhere just because she's a York horse. So at 15.8, that's tempting me at the early prices. So I've had a little bit on City Walk, the Godolphin horse. That won at Newcastle. I thought that horse won at Newcastle very much against the grain. Won it easy despite doing just about everything wrong.
Yeah.
So I thought that I got 14-1. And I thought that's the bet at this moment in time, because say Winter Power doesn't turn up or whatever, I can see this horse going off about 6-1. So I've backed him already, but I do think it sets up well for taking on Winter Power, because look, we get too bogged down and that's a York horse. Yeah, if she'd run £10 below form at Ascot, fine. But
again, I am going to remind you of what we literally just said 10 minutes ago about how hot those Ascot races were, and even horses who were beaten out of sight.
She was drawn nowhere. She was sort of drawn nowhere at Haydock a little bit as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
I think
she's all about
by the
zip.
end of this section, I'm going to talk you into backing.
Not at 15. She's got loads of zip and she's not been showing the zip.
Yeah.
You know what? She won the Nunthorpe last year by blasting out, and she's not really.
It's a sort of style thing with her, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, very good. Winter Power potentially being taken on by Keith, but again, if it's the contrary nature of me, I'm like, I think she is a York horse.
She is a York horse. But
I think she could. I think she's odds on at York and a million elsewhere potentially.
The one thing about it was 15 to 8 yeses available now, but without the doubt, she'd be 4 to 6.
Yeah.
So.
There's a Summer Mile, of course, as well, Group 2 contest, which is always quite an entertaining race. Chindit likely to be representing the Bide form.
I think that race says a lot about the Milan division, doesn't it? The Accidental Agent, an 8-year-old, is probably one of the form picks in it. Any kind of thing.
Is he really?
There's not much in there.
It's basically it's Group 1 milers and it's everyone else, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having a laugh.
Yeah. Once in every few years, it justifies its existence when a progressive type that's on its way to the Sussex steps up and wins it. But other than the rest of the time,
unless Chindit wins by 4 lengths, and we all go, maybe Bide and Real World are a little bit better than even we thought.
Yeah, I wish we'd have got the chance to see the Real World on Saturday, but we didn't. But yeah, so we still need that validation, don't we?
We do. We all do in life. Just need that validation. You're doing well, lads.
Thanks,
you keep carrying on as you are.
Thanks.
You never mind what people say about you and your cycling obsession, Matt. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. And Keith, you're a good lad.
Thanks. Is it my taste in jumpers they have a go at?
Is it what?
Is it my taste in jumpers that they?
It is. Yeah. All the people upstairs.
At least I know. It feels better when you know.
Yeah. Acceptance is the first step to improving yourself. Once again, we close out the Flat Pack with everyone's favourite game show. It is, of course, Beat Keith, everybody. Beat Keith, sponsored by the ghost of Bruce Forsyth. Once again, Keith Melrose up against Matt Gardner to prove who knows more useless racing knowledge in the studio. I say studio, it's a pub in Leeds. Keith, you smashed it out of the park last week. How are you feeling this week?
I feel like I've got to live up to that now.
Yeah.
Never happy in this show.
Everybody might bounce.
It's everybody's favourite quiz show apart from mine.
Yes.
And it's got my name on it.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Matt Gardner, you were pathetic.
Yeah, it was bad, wasn't it?
It was bad.
I did learn though that every time I hit this, producer Dan puts a bell on it. So if I get hammered again, I can just do that a lot and nobody will hear the result. So it's all good.
And it's possible that Dan might just edit you out of the entire show if you do that.
Yeah, warranted.
Yeah, just zoom in on your face for the entire hour. Okay, Beat Keith. 9 questions this week because I ran out of energy before finishing the 10. But there is a bonus point in there, so there are 10 points to play for. Okay, so fingers and buzzers at the ready. Matt Gardner versus Keith Melrose. It's Beat Keith. Jean-Claude Rouget won the Eclipse this weekend with... I've just forgotten what the horse is called. So much. Sure, absolutely, yeah. Congratulations, guys. You both get a point, and I'm fired from the job. Jean-Claude Rouget won the Eclipse this weekend with Verdani, but can you name any of Rouget's 3 previous UK Group winners in the past 10 years? Keith Melrose.
Almanzor.
Almanzor is correct. You could have also had Kemar or Vegia.
Vegia, was that him?
Yeah, there you go. Past 10 years. Okay, 1 to Keith. Grand Dam won the Distaff at Sandown this weekend under Ryan Moore at odds of 4-1, recording an RPR of 107. 9 years ago, Moore also won the same race at odds of 4-1 on a horse recording an RPR of 107, which Sir Michael Stout trained filly won it.
Integral?
It was Integral. There you go.
I thought she was more recent than that.
Well, that was sort of the thing, but everything else fitted.
Yeah,
so I thought I might as well.
You went for it. There you go. You just got to go for it. William Jarvis won a big pot this weekend with Arcube, but where was he racing over the winter?
Maidan?
It was not Maidan. Keith Melrose?
I've forgotten the name of the place. Biarritz. Not Biarritz. No, what's the place? What's the snow one called?
Oh, I can't jump in.
Completely opposite. There's no snow in Bahrain.
No, there isn't any snow.
No snow in Bahrain. It was Bahrain. So it remains 2.
What is that place called, the snow one?
Is it San Malo?
No, San
Moritz.
Not San Malo.
Moritz.
San Moritz.
San Moritz, that's right.
So Mark Prescott's Alpinista won another Group 1 this weekend. But who was the trainer's last Group 1 winner before her? Keith Melrose.
Mortal Verse?
It was not. Immortal Verse?
No, Immortal Verse. Am I thinking they're wrong?
I don't know who you're thinking of, but it wasn't Immortal Verse.
It
wasn't. Matt Gardner, have a crack.
I can picture it. It's actually a Cheveley Park course.
It wasn't.
It's rousing, isn't it?
You were thinking of Hooray, I think is what you were thinking of.
Yeah.
It was Marcia. 2017 non-film.
Yeah.
The Bunbury Cup this weekend. How far is the village of Bunbury in Cheshire to the July course in miles by car? Nearest gets the points. Start it off, Matt Gardner.
190.
190 from Gardner.
170.
It's 171.
Oh,
Keith Melrose, bang on the money.
well, not.
Well, no, it depends if you take a shortcut at the end. The July Cup this weekend, Aidan O'Brien has won the race 5 times in the past 20 years. But according to RPRs, who was his best? Was it 10 Sovereigns, US Navy Flag, Star Spangled Banner, Mozart or Stravinsky?
Mozart. It was definitely me, that.
Incorrect, Keith Melrose.
Stravinsky.
It was Stravinsky. Matt Gardner drags one back there to get himself on the board. The July Stakes this weekend. The best winner of the July Stakes in the past 10 years was Ivorwood, who was named after the creator of which children's TV show?
Rainbow.
It was not Rainbow. You bungled that one. Matt Gardner?
I've no idea. Bill and Ben.
It was not Bill and Ben.
I read this last week. I'm sure I did. Go and tell me.
It was the Magic Roundabout.
Yeah.
Bonus point if you can tell me why he was named after him.
Is it because he's by Zebedee?
It's because he's by Zebedee. There you go.
Is that genuinely a bonus point?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Bonus point. Yeah, there you go. Smashing it again. The Summer Mile. 9 of the last 10 runnings have gone to the favourite. But which high-profile 4-year-old, placed in the Derby the year before, was beaten at odds-on in 2012 for Sir Michael Stout?
Carlton House.
It was Carlton House. Keith Melrose. Last question. The John Smith's Cup is this weekend. But where is the brewery of John Smith's based?
Dan.
Whoever can say it first.
Tadcaster.
Tadcaster it is. Tadcaster it is. There you go. That was for personal respect, I think there. Another win for Keith Melrose in a score that producer Dan hopefully has.
You just do what Matt Lucas used to do on Shooting Stars and make it up.
Yeah. And I tell you what I'm going to do. It's an incredible performance. Keith Melrose wins with Matt Gardner with a respectable. Join us next week for more Beat Keith. Keith, you're not being beaten.
Well, no, I was beaten the first week, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
first week, yeah. I've got one on the
Second
board.
week.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You've come back.
This is the new Beat Keith, though. I'm unbeaten in the new Beat Keith.
You are.
I need the old format. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, that was painful for everyone, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was painful for everyone. Keith just generally a speedier type.
yeah.
You're the sprinter. You're
I said earlier I need further to get in my stride.
You do, but it's okay. Maybe an extra coffee for you next time, Matt.
That's a good idea, actually.
Lovely stuff. That's the flat pack then for another week. Good luck at Newmarket this week. Good luck on Saturday if you can keep up. Keith, Matt, you can take your silks off now, and get you. I think you need to get in the sauna again, Matt, and get that performance ready for next week. But thank you for joining us as ever. Any famous last words?
No, they couldn't hit an elephant from this far. Can't remember who it was, but it was somebody in the Boer War, I think.